But I think that's the true end goal for Mercari. So can Mercari's new no seller fees mean that they can beat eBay? Well, that's what I'm hoping to answer in today's video. So let's start with March 27th, the day that Mercari announced their new fee structure. They announced multiple things. The first and the biggest one is that there are gonna be no fees for sellers. There are going to be fees for buyers. And there's also going to be a balance withdrawal fee of $2. Now, remember those 3 points because they're all gonna be important in the point that I'm gonna try to make. Now, you might be asking, why in the world would Mercari make it so that buyers now have to pay an additional fee? And I would agree, that sounds kind of crazy, but let's start by talking about eBay, Mercari's biggest rival. So eBay, having been around a long time, their platform is pretty established and their selling structure is pretty straightforward. So as a seller, you list your item, buyer comes along, buys your listing, and then as the seller, however much that listing sold for, you pay a percentage as a fee to eBay. Now, Mercari followed that same platform for a very long time, so much so that when eBay would update their fees, Mercari would update their fees to match. Now, I think that's where they kind of messed up, because the problem, in my opinion, is that if eBay and Mercari have the same fee structure and amounts, then why would anybody bother using Mercari? Because eBay has a much wider reach due to how long they've been around. So while eBay makes most likely the majority of their money from all of those fees, all of those transactions, Mercari has to distinguish themselves, because otherwise, why would somebody, again, use Mercari if they don't have as much reach, but still have to deal with the same amount of fees? So I think that's where the new plan is coming from. We come back to this question, very fair question of why would I, as a buyer, want to pay even more for an item than before? Especially if, as a seller, you then now have to figure out what to list your item at to now make it more appealing for the buyer, even though you might also list the same thing on eBay. And then it gets all weird and complicated. And a lot of people that I've seen complaining about it on various toy groups that I'm on Facebook have said that they're just not gonna bother using Mercari anymore, whether for buying or for selling. So then how is Mercari gonna make their money? Because if people are put off by the new additional fees, then nobody's gonna buy anything, right? Well, the one big caveat that Mercari also announced along with the buyer's fee is that if you have a balance and you pay with that balance, you pay no fees. And I think that's the catch. I think that's what Mercari is gonna try to do, is that they're gonna try to get as many people with a balance within their system as possible. So here's how I see that possibly going. I'm a buyer, I wanna go buy this action figure. I pull it up, I find a listing that I like that is a fair price. I start going through the checkout process. And then when I get to the end, I see that there is this big ol' fee stacked on top, and now that makes the figure much more expensive than I would have wanted to pay. I suspect that Mercari will probably have some kind of pop-up bubble or some other kind of text that says, in the future, if you use your Mercari balance, you won't have to pay any of these additional fees. So then that incentivizes me to then become a seller as well. So if I can sell an item and pay no additional fees on that, then that creates a balance for me. And then I can use that balance to then buy the items that I want without having to pay additional fees. Now, this potentially has two huge benefits to Mercari. Number one, it means even more listings than before. And having more listings will help drive traffic to the website. And as we all know, the first thing that you need is to actually get someone's attention. So once they get people on the site, then people will start going through the same process that the seller went through initially as a buyer, and seeing that there's fees. Well, how can I avoid paying fees? And so then they would go through that same process. So the buyers become sellers, the sellers create more buyers, and then so on and so forth, creating this cycle. So that is potentially a way for Mercari to make a bunch of money on fees. But then you'd say, well, if everybody became a seller and a buyer, then nobody's paying any of those fees. I think they want as many people as possible to have a balance in their account. Now, why do they want that? For the same reason that banks want your money. When a bank has your money, they can use that money to loan, they can use that money to get interest on, they can do all kinds of stuff with that money. So if Mercari can have 1 million people all with, you know, $500 in their Mercari balance, then they can now use all that money to do all of those things. Loan it out, get interest on it, so on and so forth. But I think that's the true end goal for Mercari, and that's how they can make the no sellers for fees work, as well as basically having no fees for buyers as long as you're using your balance. Now, I do want to say that I am not a financial expert. I am not a Mercari employee. I don't have any kind of insider information. This all just makes sense to me. And hopefully that made sense to you too. But let me know if it didn't down in the comments. And otherwise, I'll see you in the next video.